Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to be walking through the top 50 teams of the RLCS season 2021-2022. This is obviously a subjective list. This is all my opinion. This is not any kind of official thing, but this is where I would rank the 50 best teams across the world for last season. Starting off at number 50, we have Endgame. Endgame was 5th in South America. They ended up playing all 9 regionals and placed top 2 in one of them. The roster of Wells, Ian Pinheiro, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, I'm not going to lie. And then Gaimin de Santos, I believe. They actually stuck with the same roster the entirety of the season, so props to them. Soniqs at 49, they came in 11th in North America. They played a total of 8 regionals, and the best they did was top 8. They also stuck with the same roster the entire season of Andy, ZPS, and th-Bravado. 48th is Torrent. They are 13th in North America, and you might be wondering why they're ranked higher than Soniqs. That's because they managed to get all their points to get 13th in North America and only 5 regionals. They ended placing a maximum of top 6, and this was the roster by the end of it with Kinsa, Magic Bear, and Zanil. They also played with Jordan earlier in the season. Number 47 is GUILD Esports. They got 13th in Europe. They also only played 5 regionals, also placing top 6th overall. They had the roster at the end of Devo, CRR, and Dorito, but they also had Nolly and Bluey on the roster at different points in the season. 46th is XSET. XSET got 12th in North America. They ended up playing a total of 7 regionals, with their best placement being in the top 8. They had a roster of JPAL, Percy, and Rapid, but they also played with Hoxer for 2 out of the 3 splits. Number 45 is Williams Resolve. They got 14th in Europe, and they played in 6 regionals. Their best placement was top 6. They didn't end up qualifying for any of the spring regionals with this current roster of Size and Prime and Stake, but when Redosin was on the roster, they were able to qualify for every single regional and get that top 6 placement. In 44th, we have SCYTES. They ended up placing 5th in MENA. They played all 9 regionals. Their best placement was 2nd. They were also the first team to actually beat the Falcons roster. They were known as Sandrock at the time, but they were the first team to ever do that on the RLCS stage. This roster was Evil, IX, which is also probably just 9, and Fahad, and they also played with Scythe for the fall split. 43rd is 1620 Kings. They were picked up by that org very late into the season, but they ended up getting 2nd overall in APAC South. They played all 9 regionals, but they couldn't manage to win one. Their best placement was 2nd. This was a roster of Squiggly, Clawsy, and Bunny Dummy, and this was a roster that took place in the fall and in the spring, but in the winter, Abs Crazy played for them. Number 42 is KRÜ Esports. They got 4th in South America. They were formed in the winter, played all 6 regionals after being formed, and their best placement was 2nd. This was a roster of Pan, Drufino, and Bems, and they actually amassed more points than Endgame, despite only having 6 regionals. Number 41 is Solary. Solary was 15th in Europe, and you might be wondering, that's pretty low for having a 41st most successful season. That's because they were actually formed in the spring. They ended up playing 3 regionals, with their best placement being 3rd. This was the roster of Mike Boy, Oli, and Fell. Also, these players also had a little bit of success on other rosters throughout the season, but the fact that they were able to get up to 15th, get 3rd in a tournament only in 1 split is rather impressive. Number 40 is O Nation. They got 11th overall in Europe. They played 7 regionals total. Their best placement was top 6. They got that in the winter. This roster stayed the same throughout the entire season. It was Flame, Breezy, and Hibs. Number 39 is Rogue. Rogue was 9th in North America. They played all 9 regionals. Got a best placement of top 6. By the end of the season, their roster was Gyro, Taroko, and Aqua, but for the fall split, they did play with Torrenturo. Number 38 was Luminosity. They were 9th in Europe, and they did play all 9 regionals. I think a lot of people forget that because Luminosity came into the scene at the winter split, but the roster of Yukio, Tox, and Ixo played together as SK in the fall split. They picked up Atomic going into the winter split, and the best they did was top 6. Despite all the high expectations for their roster, they just kept running into BDS. Number 37 is Kaka's Minions, who don't have a logo, unfortunately, so it's not really pretty. 4th in OCE, they played all 9 regionals. Their best placement was 2nd. This was a roster of Finn, Kaka, and Shores, but they also played with Tango for a little bit. Number 36 was Ghost Gaming. They got 10th in North America. They ended up playing 8 different regionals, and their best placement was 4th. They got 4th with a roster of Shock, Lion Blaze, and Hoxer in the spring split, but they also played with Roldes for 2 of the splits. Number 35 was Oxygen Esports. They got 8th overall in North America, and they played 7 different regionals. Their best placement was top 6, and this was the roster of LJ, Toasty, and Gimmick. Krasix did play 1 regional with them in the fall. 34th is Misfits. They got 10th in Europe, and they played 9 regionals. Their best placement was top 4. It was Arju, Matean, and Cash, and they always seemed to be in land contention until the very last regional, where unfortunately they just didn't have the ice. So that puts them at 34th. 33rd is AGELITE. They got 3rd in APAC North. They are one-time regional winners. They won Winter Regional 1 in APAC North. And this is the roster of Shaloan, Popo, and Maru by the end of it. They also played with Aki and Ray throughout the season. 32nd is Metapower. Metapower got 3rd in APAC South. This team was actually formed in the winter, and they played all 6 regionals from there. They were one-time regional winners. They won Spring Regional 1, and they were the only team outside of Gladiators to win a regional in APAC South. This is a roster of Kevin, Poofy, and Baleares, and they also played with FaZe in the winter split. 31st is Direwolves. Direwolves ended up getting 5th in OCE. They did take home 1 regional win. It was Winter Regional 1. This is the roster of Fiber, Misty, and Hawk, but they also played with Walcott for a short time. 30th is Bravado Gaming. They got 2nd in Sub-Saharan Africa. They won 3 different regionals, that being Winter 1, Spring 2, and Spring 3. This is a roster of To Die For, Daisy, and Happy Meal. And in my last video explaining the difference in between the teams from Season 8 to 2022, I said that Daisy and Cam were different people. They were not, just a rebrand. Number 29 is DeToNator. They got 2nd in APAC North. They won 2 different regionals, that being Spring Regional 2 and 3. They qualified for the Winter Major with the roster of Burn, Mikan, and Olpix, but after that, they ended up making the roster change for Lunatic and were the number 1 seed heading into the APAC qualifier in spring, but they could not close it out over Gaimin Gladiators. Speaking of Gaimin Gladiators, they are our 28th team. They got 1st in APAC South, and they won 8 different regionals throughout the season, all but Spring Regional 1. They qualified for the Spring Major, and they attended all 3 of the APAC qualifiers. They were one of the 2 teams to actually accomplish this. They ended up going 0-3 at the World's Wild Card, and this was a roster of Maxiu, LCT, and Abs Crazy. Chaotic and Baleares both played for the team at certain points throughout the season as well. Number 27 is Vitality. They got 8th in Europe. They played all 9 regionals. Their best placement was 2nd. They got top 14 at the Fall Major, and by the end of the season, their roster was Alpha 54, K-Dop, and Redosin, but Fairy Peak played for them for the Fall and Winter splits. Number 26 is Veloce Esports. They got 2nd in MENA. They played all 9 regionals. Their best placement was 2nd, and they went 1-3 at the World's Wild Card. For the World's Wild Card, they actually brought 4 different people, and that was Twiz, Senzo, SMW, and Impressive. But throughout the season, both Venom and Ollie also played for this roster. Number 25 is Orlando Pirates. They got 1st in Sub-Saharan Africa. They won 6 different regionals, that being all 3 in the fall, Winter 2 and 3, and Spring 1. They ended up going 1-3 at the World's Wild Card with a roster of Darth, Skillsteel, and Snowy. Number 24 is Tokyo Verdy. They got 1st in APAC North. They won 6 different regionals, that being the same regionals that Orlando Pirates run, all 3 in the fall, Winter 2 and 3, and Spring 1. They attended all 3 APAC qualifiers. They were the only team to do so, aside from Gaimin Gladiators. Top 16 at the Fall Major. They ended up qualifying, but they couldn't win any games. They went 1-3 at the World's Wild Card with the roster of Realize, Tenhao, and Sigums. Also throughout the season, Maru and Conra played for them. Maru was the player who was with Tenhao and Realize for the Fall Major. Number 23 is O1 Esports. They got 3rd in MENA. They played 9 regionals. Best placement was 2nd as well, and the reason they're higher than Veloce is because they did go 2-3 at the World's Wild Card, just barely missing out on the main event. This is the roster of Zazonix, AMS, and M7SN. Number 22 is Power. They got 3rd in OCE, and they won 3 different regionals, that being Fall 3, Winter 3, and Spring 1. They qualified for the Fall Major and got top 11 under the banner of Ground Zero, and they also qualified for the Spring Major, but got only top 16 there. This was a roster throughout the entire season of Amphis, Express, and Torsauce. 21st is Team Liquid. They got 11th in Europe, and they were actually formed in the winter split. Didn't qualify for any regionals until the spring split, where they qualified for all 3. Got a best placement of 2nd, and they got top 8 at the spring major. This is a roster of a Chronic, Oski, and a Tau. Number 20 is Evil Geniuses. They got 7th in Europe. They played all 9 regionals, and their best placement was 3rd. They got top 8 at the winter major, and this was the roster of Catalysm, Ivan, and RizX45. 19th is Complexity. They played all 9 regionals, and their best placement was actually top 4. They ended up getting top 8 at the fall major, and then they had the roster of AJG, Razebull, and Shad. The reason they are slightly higher than Europe is due to gaining slightly more points throughout the season, and the fact that they completely switched regions from South America to North America and ended up getting 7th there. Number 18 is Team Secret. They got 2nd in South America. They were 2-time regional winners, that being Winter 1 and Spring 1. They qualified for the Winter Major, but didn't end up taking any games. But at the Spring Major, they took down BDS in the first round in a sweep, which secured them a top 12 finish. They went 2-3 at Worlds Wildcard, and this was a roster of Sad, Knight, and Math. For the fall split, Drufino played in place of Math. Number 17 is Pioneers. They got second in OCE, won 2 different regionals, that being Spring Regional 2 and 3. They got top 12 at the Winter Major due to Sandrock not qualifying and were able to slip out of groups. And they also got top 12 at the Spring Major, also taking down Team BDS. They ended up going 2-3 at Worlds Wildcard, and this was a roster of Banana Head, Scrub, and Super Locky. Number 16 is the Club. They got third in South America. They were one-time regional winners, only winning Fall Regional 2. That helped them qualify by 1 point for the Fall Major, where they didn't end up taking any games. They were under the banner of Era Eternity at the time. They also got top 12 at Worlds with a roster of Astromic, KV1, and Lost. Also throughout the season, Snips and Math played for them. Math and Snips and Astromic were the roster that we saw at the Fall Major under Era Eternity for this team. Number 15 is OpTic Gaming. They got 6th in North America. They played all 9 regionals, and their best placement was 2nd, where they took G2 to 21 games in an amazing series. They got top 11 in the Fall Major, didn't end up qualifying for Winter Major, and got top 8 in Spring Major, and then ended up getting top 16 at Worlds, qualifying through the wildcard qualifier. They are the roster of Mist, Drees, and Illusion, but also throughout the season, Turbo Pulsa and Atomic played for them. Number 14 is Renegades. Renegades topped the leaderboards in OCE, and they won 3 different regionals, that being Fall Regionals 1, 2, and Winter 2. They got top 11 at the Fall Major and top 16 at the Winter Major as well. But they also got top 16 at Worlds, qualifying through the wildcard qualifier 3 and 1. They were the roster of CJ, Kami, and Fever. Number 13 is SMPR Esports. They got 6th in Europe. They played 9 regionals, with their best placement being 2nd as well. They got top 4 at the Fall Major, which surprised many people. And they also got top 12 at Worlds. This was a roster of Casio, Shawset 45, and Exotic, but they also played with Archie for the Fall and Winter splits. Number 12 is Karmine Corp. They got 5th in Europe. They played 9 different regionals, best placing 3rd. They got top 4 at the Spring Major and top 8 at Worlds. This was the roster of Astral, Itachi, and Nali for the Spring split, but for the Fall and Winter splits, they played with Stake. 11th is Spacestation Gaming. They got 5th in North America. They played 9 regionals, with their best placement being 2nd. They got top 3 at the Winter Major, top 6 at the Spring Major, and then ended up falling top 12 at Worlds. This was the roster of Arsenal, Reddles, and Daniel for the Winter and Spring splits, but they played with Sipical for the Fall split. Number 10 is Dignitas. Dignitas got 4th in Europe. They won 1 regional, that being Fall Regional 2. They ended up getting top 8 at the Fall Major, going out in the quarterfinals after going 3-0 in the Swiss stage. They also qualified for the Winter Major, where they got top 12, ended up falling in the first round of the lower bracket, and they ended up only finishing top 16 at Worlds. This was the roster of Jorias, apparently Jack, and Scrubkilla. Number 9 on our list is Endpoint. They got 3rd in Europe, winning 2 different regionals, that being Fall Regionals 1 and 3. They got top 8 at the Fall Major, 12th at the Winter, 16th at the Spring Major, and finished top 16th at Worlds. This is the first team on our list to qualify for all 3 majors, as well as the World Championship. And this was the roster of Relating Wave, Metsunaris, and Archie for the Spring split, but in the Winter and the Fall, they played with Seiko in place of Archie. Number 8 is Version 1. They got 4th in North America. They won 1 regional, that being Winter Regional 3. They got top 6 at the Winter Major, and then top 3 at the Spring Major, and then ended up going top 8 at Worlds. This was a roster of Calm, Torment, and Beast Mode, but for the Fall split, they played with Gimmick in place of Beast Mode. For number 7, we have the General NRG. They got 3rd in North America, winning 2 different regionals, that being Fall Regional 2 and Winter Regional 1. They got 2nd at the Fall Major, top 12 at the Winter Major, and didn't end up qualifying for the Spring Major. They did secure a spot at top 8 at Worlds, though. This was the roster of Justin, Garrett G, and Squishy. Number 6 is FaZe Clan. They got 2nd in North America, winning 2 different regionals, that being the very first one and the very last one, Fall 1 and Spring 3. They got top 4 at the Fall Major, top 4 at the Winter Major, then ended up going out top 12 at the Spring Major. But in true FaZe Clan fashion, they ended up getting top 4 at Worlds. This is a roster of First Killer, AJ, and Sipical, but they played with Illusion in place of Sipical for the Fall split. We're into the top 5, and leading up there is Team Falcons. They got 1st in MENA. They won all 9 regionals, which is a very impressive feat. They got top 8 at the fall major. They couldn't attend the winter major, and they got runner-up second at the spring major. They ended up falling top 12 at Worlds, but still throughout the season, they had enough accomplishments to put them top 5 in my eyes. This is the roster of Ocalid, Ahmad, and TRK. Fourth, we have Furia Esports. They got first in South America. They won 6 different regionals, being Fall 1 and 3, Winter 2 and 3, and Spring 2 and 3. They ended up going up top 14 in the Fall major, but they got top 6 in both this Winter and Spring majors, and they got top 4 at Worlds. This is a roster of Card, Kaio, and Jan. In third place, we have Moist Esports. They got first in Europe. They won 3 different regionals, being Winter 1 and 3 and Spring 3. They got second at the Winter Major. They won the Spring Major, and they got top 8 at Worlds. And this is the roster of Rise, Joyo, Vatira. In second place, you have G2 Esports. They topped the leaderboards in North America. They won 4 different regionals, that being Fall 3, Winter 2, Spring 1 and 2. They got top 11 in the Fall Major, and this was the roster of JNAP, Chicago, and Drees. They made the roster change, subbing Drees out for Atomic, and they won the Winter Major right after that move. They got top 12 at the Spring Major, but they also got second overall at Worlds. And the most successful team of the season is Team BDS. They ended up getting second in points in Europe, but that doesn't matter when you are the Fall Major champions and the World champions. They won 3 different regionals as well to go with that being Winter 2, Spring 1, and Spring 2. They got top 8 at the Winter Major and top 16 at the Spring Major. This was the roster of Monkey Moon, Extra, and Seiko, but they also played with Mark by 8 for the Fall and Winter splits. And so there you have it. Those are the top 50 teams in my eyes. Let me know if you agree or if you don't. Feel free to comment, leave a like, subscribe. I'll see you all later.